When my brother and dad passed, it made me realize we're not all here forever. And so many people postpone things they want to do for sometime in the future or when they're retired. I saw my brother, when he was 27, like perfect health. And all of a sudden, within a few months, he was gone. Spiraled my life down for a couple of months of depression. And when I came out of it, I'm like, man, I'm going to go at the things that we love to do together more passionately and with a purpose. And, I'm going to go forward because going forward is the only way we can go in life. And so, if I want to try to visit every country or hike up mountains or feel alive and feel like I'm maximizing my time, it's the only way I know how to slow down time is to have new experiences, do things that make you feel alive and in the moment. If I disappeared from planet Earth tomorrow, I feel like I lived a full life.
Welcome everybody to episode 18 of the Paul and Pals podcast. I'm your host, Ponyboy Paul, and Paul and Pals is a podcast where I interview my creative pals to learn how they became who they are today to inspire you for tomorrow. On this episode, I have a creative conversation with my pal, Brian Asher, aka The World Hiker, who's kind of known for hiking the world. In this episode, Brian kind of tells us what really inspired him to pursue this goal of reaching all 197 countries. He then kind of tells us his favorite and least favorite experiences while doing all this. And lastly, he follows up with some words of advice on why one shouldn't postpone things. So, without any further ado, let's get creative. Yeah, man, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for willing to take the time. I know you're pretty much always across the world. And I think when we first connected, I think like December, November, you were like in Ecuador. So like, I was just glad I was able to connect with you for the time. But yeah, let's just start, introduce yourself. Where do you live? What do you do? And we'll just kind of go from there.
Sure, you got it. My name is Brian Asher. I grew up in Sacramento, California, and I've been a teacher for about 10, 11 years. And I've kind of tried to teach my students and show people how you can travel the world and do it on a teacher's budget. Didn't grow up rich, lots of money with family that traveled, and I've been to 195 of the 197 countries in the world over the last 14 years. And I love to trail run marathons, try to maximize life, try to get everything out of it that you can. And yeah, over Christmas, like you said, I was in Ecuador. It's one of the countries I could get into over Christmas break.
Yeah.
And took the negative COVID test, got down there and hiked up big volcanoes and got some indigenous markets I visited and went into the Amazon and did a lot of different things down there. So every school break I try to go somewhere. It's tough right now, but I try the best I can.
And it's funny you mentioned the 195 countries because when I was writing the promo, right, I was going to be like, I was going to hype it up like, over 200 plus countries. And then I Googled, like, how many countries are there in the world? And I realized it's only like technically 197. So I'm actually really glad that I checked that. But before we get into your traveling, because that's something that you've kind of done pretty much in the last couple years, can we talk about like kind of just growing up? Like, what was your lifestyle like, your childhood? And let's go from there.
Sure. Yeah, I grew up in Sacramento. Grew up in the suburbs of Sacramento. Played 3 sports, played soccer, basketball, baseball, went to aunt and uncle's houses in state, didn't really travel at all, didn't camp at all, didn't run at all. Never imagined going to other countries really because it wasn't part of my lifestyle. And kind of normal growing up, played 3 sports in high school and got a scholarship to play some baseball in college. And then once I stopped playing baseball in college, man, I got too much free time. I'm way too active to just sit around, and I saw some of my friends kind of getting fat and eating pizza and drinking beer. And that lifestyle just didn't quite fit for me. And so my brother talked me into working at a summer camp in Colorado. And man, that opened my eyes to the outdoors, working as a backpacking guide, taking teenagers up to 14,000 foot peaks in Colorado. And that just gave me the shift I needed from team sports / the college party lifestyle that quickly kind of got old for me to something else, an outlet I could put my energy into when I was about 19, 20 there.
Got you. And growing up, what was like your interests in terms of like, do you kind of have an idea? I know you're a teacher right now, but like, was that kind of always your interest growing up, or were you more like, because it seemed like you were playing college sports, were you kind of more like, I really want to dedicate my life to sports? Like, what was your kind of thinking growing up?
Yeah, no, I didn't imagine teaching at all. I studied economics. I couldn't wait till 3:00 every day when the school bell rang to go out and play soccer, basketball, baseball with my friends. So I figured something with business. I got different family members that work with business, and no, teaching was not on the option. It was
Got you.
definitely not in the options, but that changed when I went down to Guadalajara when I was 21, 22, right out of college, and started taking Spanish classes. And they offered me a job teaching at the same school, and I rejected it twice. And then the third time they asked me, I just tried a few conversation classes at night. And so got into it and was terrified to be on stage, kind of in front of 20 or 30 adults that I
Yeah,
never met before. And after a couple of weeks, like they were really nice to me. I started enjoying it, so then I got into teaching, and that's kind of
got you.
snowballed into the next 5 or 6 years of teaching English abroad. Absolutely love, and I still teach English sometimes when people want private classes. So yeah,
Okay,
that was something I really enjoyed doing.
got you. And with that being said, when you first got into your teaching, because I know you're basically you're a high school Spanish teacher now, right?
Yep, you got it. 6 years teaching high school Spanish at the same school that my brother and I graduated from in Sacramento.
Okay, that's really dope. And now that you were fluent, and I know you were kind of traveling, like what was your first traveling experience like? Was it like to a Spanish speaking country and you kind of like, oh, I really like doing this, or how did that go?
Sure, yeah, first time out of the country. 21, senior year in college. Went down and did a trip to Costa Rica solo. Couch surfing is where you can stay for free. It's an online community. Some people think couch surfing would be dangerous, but some people think it might, be a good idea to save money, and that's what I went for. So you stay with a local family or someone that's registered online,
Hmm.
and stay for free. Was terrified. Had like four kind of gates led into the door when I got there at this
Yeah,
local family's home in the capital, Costa Rica, and they treated me well. I didn't speak much Spanish at the time, but it was exciting, terrifying. I mean, all the emotions kind of packed into one. I don't think I slept at all the first couple of nights, but when you have something that makes you feel that alive, you
yeah,
either hate it or you love it. And for me, I hated it a little bit, but I loved it like 90%. So I
got
wanted
you.
to, feel more of that excitement of being abroad. That was my first time, 21 years old. I mean, I'd never really left the country. Tijuana doesn't count when you drive down for,
Yeah,
3 hours or something. So
yeah.
that was really the first time. And I was, man, I got to taste some more of this and see what it's like. So
I can
that,
relate to
that just
that.
kind of broke me in.
I can relate to that. I actually, one thing I was able to do while I was in college is, travel abroad every summer. And one of my summer trips was actually to Costa Rica to live with a family. And like you said, I was kind of scared because, like, they speak Spanish the whole time. It's not like they're speaking English, it's Spanish the whole time. And so I was able to get by. I'm not fluent like you are, but I can, I can speak, más o menos, you know what I'm saying? But so I kind of want to talk more into like, you had this first trip. It was very beautiful. You enjoyed it. It made you really switch your mindset, right? But I want to know, like, is that what made you be like, oh, I'm gonna go to every single country in the world? Like, where was that pivot coming from?
Yeah, that took a long time to come. So that
Okay.
first trip, senior year in college, then after that, I realized that I wanted to go abroad after school because I couldn't afford to do it abroad. A lot of people, my brother did two abroads during college. It was part of his tuition. He was on a full ride. And for me at Sac State, where I went, I'd say
Mm,
a couple, I think, people here that are going to or graduate from Sac State on. So
yeah.
um, that I couldn't afford it. So I was trying to save up and I'm like, man, I can do this for less than whatever it was in the day, 6,000 a semester or something. So I'll go down on my own and travel like a backpacker and just hitchhike and do it cheap once I graduate from school. And so that was kind of mindset I took, and really like every country didn't come into play for 6, 7 years later. I mean, it was just
Mm,
living in Latin America, teaching English, being abroad, and had been to 10, 15 countries, but was just like traveling within the countries during those 5 or 6 years. And then when I came back to the US and I realized I had those 3 months of vacations a high school teacher does instead of 2 weeks, then started wanting to go places every break and didn't even count them, but they started adding up.
got
So it
you.
started adding up like 20, 30, 40, 50 countries. And then what, 2, 3 years ago, I realized I was at 90. And I started meeting people that were going to every country. And it was really a couple friends that I met along the way that were like, I'm at 160 or 170. And like, wait till you get to West Africa, wait till you get to Central Africa, wait till you get to the Middle East. And, you're going to see what you're really made of. And so I just started thinking, man, I've been to the easier countries. I wonder what like the harder countries of the
Yeah.
world to visit would be like. So that kind of got me curious.
Got you. Okay. Easy and harder countries. Let's talk about that. So, what would you define as an easy country and what was a hard country for you?
Sure. Western Europe. Western
That's
Europe is
easy or
super
hard?
easy.
Okay.
Yeah, you were saying about going to Spain and things like those
Yeah.
countries are easy. I mean, not to like knock them. I mean, it's great. I mean,
Hmm.
everyone wants to go to Western Europe. There's a reason why Italy and Spain and France and England and Scotland have visitors and they're safe and you see 15-year-olds taking trains by themselves,
Yeah.
like those are easy countries to visit because lots of people speak English, they're safe, transportation. I mean, like it's more of what we're used to.
Yeah.
And then harder countries, you could probably guess what some would be, but we'll say like the Yemens and Saudi Arabias and South Sudan and the Congo and countries that there's a ton of red tape. It's way different. Security might be an issue. Maybe there's no infrastructure. Maybe you don't know anyone that's been there. Yeah, there's definitely like the world in thirds for me. There's the third everyone goes to, the middle third, which I love, and the third where if you're going to every country in the world, you'll visit the last third. Otherwise, like don't start with countries in my mind 120 to 197. Like start with something easier for sure.
Yeah. And let's talk about that because I remember during when I was catching up with you earlier this week, you had mentioned something about like those places that you're supposed to be scared of, right? And you kind of mentioned that there are places that are like not the easiest to travel. So could you kind of go in more detail what you mean by those places that you still wanted to go, even though they might not seem like, they're safe to go?
Sure. Yeah, I think a lot of those countries end up being my favorite countries because I was mentioning with you earlier this week, but like if you walk down the street in Rome or Barcelona, you're one of a million people, right? That's a foreigner, that's a tourist. So they don't really care. Often they'll ignore you if you're in a place like I don't know, Rome, Barcelona, Madrid, where else? Anywhere that's popular, they don't care. They see a million of you. But when you go to northern Pakistan, if you're in Saudi Arabia, or if you're in the vast majority of African countries, like people take an interest in you. Bangladesh, I'll throw that country out. Like probably no one here has been to Bangladesh. Literally every time you take a picture, there's like 6 people behind you smiling, wanting to meet you and curious on what picture you're taking, and like so tremendously friendly. Sometimes it's scary how friendly they are, but like when you're in the streets, like you have a fan club everywhere you go. And so, it's just night and day when you go to countries that no one goes to or supposedly more dangerous or less touristy countries compared to countries where there's a billion people that go there. And either they're trying to scam you, they're ignoring you, they've seen a million of you, they're tired of you, like, whatever it is, it's just really an authentic experience when you go to places that have fewer visitors.
Got you. And have you had any? Because I mean, you're saying it like they're all friendly, but have you had any like bad experiences? It seems like it's all been kind of pretty rosy and good.
No, there's a lot of rough experiences. I'm a positive, upbeat, optimistic person,
Gotcha.
and you have to be that way. But yeah, when you're going, I mean, I went through 41 countries in Africa in a row without leaving the continent, and I mean,
41.
41. There's 54
Wow.
countries in Africa, so I've been to 13 before, and then went to 41 in a row 2 years ago. I took the year off teaching, and I mean that will bring you to your knees. It will bring you to your knees when you're at Borders and they pull you behind a shed and you're the only white person in
Yeah.
the bus, the only foreigner, and they're gonna bribe you or try to
Oh,
talk you
snap.
into why you can't cross over the border. And I mean, yeah, and it happens time after time after time.
Got you.
So,
Do you have a memorable one that sticks out right now?
oh man, I remember. I think it was close to Nigeria. It was going between like Benin and Togo and
Hey,
Ghana there.
shout out Nigeria.
Yeah, no, Nigeria was great. In Lagos there, I stayed with a friend that I met online, and so I stayed in Lagos. Lagos is a fun city. And Nigerians are really fun. And he told me, and I think it's true, and I think you embody it, is that Nigerians are kind of the most enthusiastic, upbeat, proud of their culture.
Yeah.
They have a lot of things going for them, and they know it. And so
Gotcha.
it's the country in Africa with the
You said they're
biggest
really
population.
handsome too, right? Like really like
And good looking.
yeah, thank you.
Good looking. But like
Yeah.
just like you got your flag behind you, right? They're proud
Yeah.
of their culture. And the
Yeah.
guy I stayed with there in Lagos, he was the same thing, man. He was like all about Nigeria, and I loved it.
Gotcha.
He was very proud of it.
That's
So
really
an example of like going through borders, I mean, remember going through the Sahara, which probably most people know goes, about 7,000 kilometers, like almost 4,000 miles
cool.
from east to west or west to east though. And so, I mean, I was sitting there in buses with like, 5 people per 2-person bench, and just sitting there with gas tanks in the middle. There were people sitting on the gas tanks, and, the windows cracked maybe a half an inch. It's probably 130 degrees, 125, 130 degrees. And they have the windows cracked, so the sand doesn't come in the windows. And you're sitting there just sweating your guts out. I mean, like in my mind, I always tell people, it's like, you just got to like power off. You got to shut yourself down. You're going to go crazy on a
Yeah.
16-hour day like that. They might not let you out to use the bathroom. You might get pulled out at checkpoints where the police are going to pick on you because you're the only foreigner in the bus and ask you
Yeah.
what you're doing, if all your documents, pay them to let it get into the next zone in the country. So, I mean, going from like Mali to Burkina to Niger, those countries are brutally tough. Yeah. They're really hard.
Got
And
you.
so you just mentally, man, you better find some some zone or some good vibe to stay with, because those are brutal days, and
Got you.
you got to be positive and upbeat. But yeah, day in and day out, I always tell people, you love the 1 hour you see the pictures of, but most people probably would hate the other 15 hours, honestly.
Mm,
I mean, in the harder countries, because it's a lot of work.
yeah.
It's a lot of effort to do it, and like, yeah, it's a lot of effort to do it on your own and do it on a budget. You could
Yeah.
do it the $300 a day version. You can do the $30 a day version. You can guess which one I pick as a teacher.
Yeah.
So I don't have someone driving me around in a bus or a van, or taking me like escorted everywhere. Like I'm sitting there in the bus sweating it out with all the local people going across the Sahara, and so you
That's the
feel
best
it.
experience. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
you
real.
feel it, man. It's authentic. It's real, but
Got
it's
you.
definitely a challenge.
And let's talk about what's been like one of your favorite slash best experiences.
Oh man, there's a ton. There's a ton of them. Let's see which one to pick. I'll try to pick a different one a little bit. Vanuatu is a little country that's over in the Pacific, kind of above Australia, kind of near Indonesia there.
Hmm.
And so I have several friends that have worked in the Peace Corps. Peace Corps is where you serve for 2 years, and you either work with education or environment or agriculture or health.
Hmm.
And so I had a friend working there in the Peace Corps, and so I got to stay with her and her host family there in Vanuatu. And it's just a little remote village. They put Peace Corps volunteers in places where there's no other foreigners in that city. So I got to stay there, and they had this kind of becoming of a man ceremony where this boy had been off in isolation. It sounds weird, but for like
Yeah.
3 weeks with a grandpa or with some like an elder in the community,
Yeah.
and came back into the community. And so they sacrificed 6 or 7 pigs. Everyone dressed up like it was a day of dancing and kind of celebration, and just the costumes, the colors, like this explosion of color, and being the only other foreigner there besides friend who's in the Peace Corps. You just get moments like that where you get to see something that no one else sees, no one else would ever see, because there's not a calendar of festivals or events or something
Yeah.
for foreigners to go to.
That's
So
true. Yeah.
I mean, that kind of thing just happens over and over. I've had a lot of magical moments along the way.
Got you. And there's kind of two things I want to address that you mentioned recently. As one, you mentioned traveling on a budget, which is a teacher's budget, obviously, and then two, you also said you took I think about a whole year off.
Yeah,
So can you kind of like take us through that experience and how that's been like, or what
sure.
that was like?
Yes, I taught English abroad, where um, by U.S. standards, you make very, very little teaching abroad generally. And then I
Hmm.
came back and got my credential, and have been teaching high school the last 6 years. So most people probably realize that teachers make less than the average in the U.S. So if you're in the U.S., it's not a high-paying job. I do realize that many people in other countries make less, and so I don't take it for granted that when I come home and I hear teachers complaining in our staff meetings, I realize that many people working really hard, Mexico or Brazil or Colombia, and making way less in general in
Hmm.
dollars. So I don't take it for granted. But yeah, that being said, have never had a trip or anything given or paid for. My parents have not paid a penny for anything I've ever done, and so I've had to be smart. And there's kind of two ways you can do it. You can look at it on how much do I spend when I'm going, and how much do I save when I'm living day to day. And I try to do both pretty well. So I think people only think about the first one, like, oh, how much do you spend per day?
Yeah.
So if you hop on Airbnb or Booking, you can find places to stay probably 90% of the world for under $20 a night. And that's cheaper than almost any hotel in the US. So
Mm.
I try to spend very little when I'm going. I eat street food, I take local transportation. I have friends, contacts, I stay there. And I almost never do tours. So on the spending side, I try to stay within a region as well, and spend little. And then on the saving side, when you're at home, I mean, in the US, people spend money on all kinds of stuff. I don't drink coffee. I don't really drink alcohol. I don't buy expensive clothes. I don't buy expensive cars and things. I just really value and prioritize travel and experiences over
Yeah.
stuff. And you can call that a minimalist. I think a minimalist in the US has a lot of things that we still have as far as possessions compared to, I've been opened up to how people live in a lot of the world. So when I turn on the tap water, I'm grateful because I picture people in the Congo carrying jugs on their heads for, 5 miles a day. So there's a lot of things that we take for granted in the US for sure.
Hmm.
And, so I try to live cheaply to prioritize these experiences. So that's the first one on the budget. And the second one you're asking was about taking a year off. So at 90 countries 2 school years ago. I was like, man, I'm never going to get to 197 if I just go on school holidays. I mean, I would, but it would take a decade or something. Well,
Yeah.
man, what would happen if I took 1 year off? And so had come home and take care of family issues, and my brother and father had passed within a year, which was really a rough year for me, and had come home to help support my mom, take care of my mom, so I moved back into home, and then had to get mom set up so I could go. She depended all on me. So during that year, I promised myself that I'd help her move out, clean out all of our stuff for 30 years, being in a home, and find her a place to live with friends. And then if I could do that, then I would think about taking the next year off, possibly as a I don't know, self-created sabbatical in my mind as a goal to try to visit 50, 60, 70, however many countries I could get to the following year. And so I was able to sell the house. Basically, I was born and help set up mom, put the money away for mom, trusting that will take care of her the rest of her life. And went and asked for a leave of absence the next day with the principal at my school, which I was pretty nervous about doing because I thought he's like going to say, no, you can't do that. You're done. Like, good luck. Find a job when you come back. But he said, Spanish will be a requirement the year you come back at our high school. So odds are we'll be looking for 1 or 2 more Spanish.
Okay.
So we'd love to have you back. It's been great to have you the last 5 years. And get the paperwork. I'll sign it for you tomorrow. I'm like, I was gonna quit either way. So I was like, man, that's great. If I can come back the next year, basically not guaranteed, but almost guaranteed a job back, then that gave me some comfort knowing that I could come back literally a week before school started or less and jump right back into a job. So I left 2 days after school started on my birthday, June 11th, 2 school years ago, and took a carry-on backpack with a drone, a GoPro, and like 4 t-shirts and 2 pairs of pants, a pair of shorts. Not much. I mean, minimalist stuff. And a little terrified to take on the second half of the world with the harder, more dangerous, scarier countries. And had a general ballpark in my head of how I do it. Caribbean, Pacific, Central Asia, Middle East, Africa. And then, whatever I had time for after that. So was gone exactly 14 months, literally 4 days before school started. I came back the day before meeting started and went to exactly 100 countries that year, which blew my mind away, and was left with 6 left when I got back. Wow. And I mean, that's a nutshell version of it. But I mean, every day is like a full-time job. I just put in the same energy I put into teaching into trying to get into every country in the world, because visas, paperwork, contacts, WhatsApp contacts, other travelers. Like, I mean, every day I was just on the grind, just going at it, trying to make it happen.
Wow, that was a lot, man. Man, that's a lot to overcome right there, and still have that passion to go do what you really wanted to do. And like when you were, because I want to know also when you kind of established the world hiker persona, but when you were dedicating yourself to this 1 year of just traveling everywhere, like the rest of this uncharted territory, was your mom, was she like, oh, that's fine? Or was she like kind of very worried? Because it seems like it was like more of the dangerous countries, right?
Yeah, I think I broke her in pretty early. So when I was first going, I mean, I kind of hitchhiked and took buses from Sacramento down to Colombia. So I think at that point, I mean, that was when I was like 23, maybe after my first year in Mexico. So at that point, I think mom and dad learned to trust me. So my mom's really good. Actually, she does not worry almost at all, and she actually researches the places where I go and wants to learn about them, and like has in fact tell me rather than be careful or don't do this or don't do that. Like she tells me like, did you know this, and this about where I'm living or where I'm going to in Colombia? So she's really good on it. I'm grateful. She doesn't throw a lot of fear my way. We know kind of people's thoughts and opinions can affect you, and so she doesn't throw a lot of fear my way, but just encouragement and support. She loves learning about it.
That's really good. Shout out. And then I also want to ask, when did you establish you were the world hiker? Like, was that something like in the idea you had, or was that kind of part of your 1 year sabbatical trip? Like, where did that come from?
Yeah, the year before I left, in my mind, I was cranking away, thinking about planning this and getting everything ready and sold and stuff. So thought it would be interesting to make a website. And I was talking to my students. I think my students probably gave me the idea, like, hey, you like to travel and you like to hike and do the outdoors. Like, those are the 2 things you're always doing. And so why don't you figure out some way to combine them? And so I think I threw out a couple of ideas to one of my classes. I was like, world hiker. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. And like, it's not registered. The domain name's still available. So I just seemed like it kind of meshed the two things I love to do, which is running outdoors, hiking. I mean, I love the outdoors. I'm working a given week. I'm all going to the mountains and stuff. And then, basically the 3 months off of school every year, I'm in another country almost every day. Not every day, but the vast majority of it.
Yeah.
And so it just seemed like the way to do it. And they're like, hey, if you're going to go, you might as well share. I never really used Instagram that much or made a YouTube video. And so by no means am I an expert at it, but I enjoy sharing and kind of showing what it's like really. I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of people. That's fine. I got friends that do this too, but like will pose in really cool outfits and things and kind of make it look glamorous. And like, I don't know, I wear 4 t-shirts for a whole year, so you can tell that I'm not that glamorous of a person. So I try to show a little bit of the reality of it and
Yeah.
not make it seem overly perfect when you're in a country that, half the country maybe people that are just seriously looking for food. I'm not going to lie and say that it's picture perfect and that,
Yeah.
I'm sitting here posing, just relax and do things. So, I'll try to bring a little bit of a light to the situation and show some reality to it.
Yeah, I saw your YouTube. I think it's the World Hiker, and I think what I really liked about it was like it was a very like genuine like day in the life of, which is kind of really cool to see because I think that's really the best way to learn about a country, to like know what am I gonna experience versus what you might see advertised on like a billboard or a website. So I definitely think you're doing a pretty good job with that. And I was gonna ask you, do you kind of have an idea of what your next spot? Because you said 195 out of 197. So where are the two remaining countries?
Yeah, that's a question everyone asks me. North Korea and Taiwan are the last two.
Oh, so
And
that might take
so,
a okay.
no, it's all good. I mean, that's like
Yeah.
the obvious, like, what are the last two? I should have mentioned that right off the bat. So, literally, Thanksgiving 13 months ago, I signed up on a tour. You go to the DMZ, which is the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea, and you go, it counts. It's not the way I like to do it, but you go to the Blue House. It's technically in North Korea. Step across, you go like 10 yards, 10 meters into the country.
Yeah.
And that's the only way Americans can do it because we've been
Ah.
banned from North Korea because college student several years ago took a
Yeah.
propaganda poster off the wall, died because of trauma or mysterious reasons, and the
Yeah.
U.S. kind of has banned Americans from going for the last 3 straight years. So that's the way several friends have done it. It's not ideal. I was signed up for that tour every single school break in the last year. It's been canceled because of health issues. And so Taiwan's a piece of cake. You can walk into Taiwan normal year on COVID life and
Yeah.
visa free. I got a friend that teaches English in Taipei. So if I had literally 3 days, I could finish. But I've had to be patient for the last year, obviously, as we haven't had 3 normal days in the
Gotcha.
world in a while.
And what's your goal? Like, cause I was kind of thinking, like, now that you're pretty close to that 197, do you feel like once you reach that, do you have any plans, an idea, or are you kind of just gonna keep traveling? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, what's kind of your reasoning?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there's a lot of places I'd love to go back to. I always mention like China or Russia or Mexico, Brazil, India. These were the world's like biggest countries. There are 20 countries within one, or 100 countries within one. I mean, there's so much to see. If you've been to Sichuan and Yunnan province in China and the Great Wall, like, have you seen it? Have you really experienced China? I mean, Mexico, I've been, lived here several times. I've actually been to all 31 states in Mexico. But there's still places that I go. I'm like, man, I never heard of that place. Like last weekend, going to a place with all these waterfalls and like spectacular. And like I never knew about it until a month or two ago.
Yeah.
And so yeah, there's a lot to see. I don't imagine stopping it. I mean, I might transform kind of the way I do it. I've gone pretty hardcore and pretty budget and pretty solo, which makes for a lot of long days. But and I think I like to go, with friends, with we'll see if it works out
Yeah.
to be married or have family or how things will shape up here. But for now, that's been the goal for the last few years, is to get to everyone. I don't imagine stopping, completely, but it might change the way I
Yeah.
travel at least a little bit.
And one thing we didn't talk about as much is you're also really big into running, right? You've run a couple marathons. I think I was reading or maybe I was watching something about a marathon you ran in Brazil, I believe. I think you won that one.
Yeah, there was one
Yeah.
in Portugal. That's how I
Okay.
met your buddy Juan, actually. Estaba corriendo allá en Yosemite y lo conocí ahí.
Okay.
So I met him there. I was doing a 50 kilometer, like 32-mile loop. And yeah, I've run 62 full marathons, which are 26.2 miles, and run about smaller ones that I've run in. And so um, by no means am I saying that I'm faster than everybody. There's a lot of people faster than me. But for a while there's a lot of trail marathons in California that I did pretty well in. And one in Portugal that was fun that I made a video on. they called me a Brazilian on national TV, which probably made me as happy as winning the marathon, honestly. When they called me Brazilian,
Oh,
Brian
really?
Asher on national TV in Portugal, and past the guy who's a former Olympic marathoner in Portugal.
Slight
That was
flex.
past his prime. Past his prime. Let me say very
Okay.
much past
You
his
ain't gotta
prime.
add that though. Just say it. Just like, yeah, I beat the Olympian.
No, past his prime for sure. But that was pretty exciting. Finished the marathon in Portugal and be in first place. And where I met your buddy Juan, which I see his comments there, was
Yeah.
running. Anyone who's been to Yosemite, one of my favorite places. But you go up the Mist Trail, goes past Vernal, Nevada Falls. I went up past Half Dome, the Clouds Rest, came back down, and then I met Juan, your buddy who connected us at
Yeah.
Glacier Point, and 28 miles in or something. And it was snowing at that point, so it was. I think they were a little
I think
surprised to see
you're
one in
I think you
shorts and a
told me you were wearing
t-shirt.
shorts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you're moving, 35 degrees isn't bad. Obviously, if you're standing still, it is. But
Uh-huh. Gotcha. I think you might have frozen on mine. Do you see it?
we all good?
Okay, I think you're back now.
Okay, I think we're back.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah, I love running. I try to encourage my students, especially right now with COVID, to get out, to stay active. I mean, I don't know. I admire people who show self-discipline and kind of self-starters that are able to do things right now more than any time in our lives. I think it's a time where hopefully I can encourage people to get out there and stay active. I still run 10K every day, basically, like 5 or 6 miles every day on the weekends.
yeah.
Go out and hike peaks or snowshoe peaks. Down in Mexico as well. Been down visiting a little bit. Gone up some 17, 18,000 foot volcanoes. So, yeah, stay active. Try to stay active all the time.
Got you. And I was gonna ask about that. I think oh, they're saying there's no sound. Can y'all hear me?
All right, we all good?
Yes, sir.
Audio's
Sound
better?
sound check.
Yeah.
I think we're good. But yeah, we had some questions come in while we were waiting. How many days? So from Michelle, she says, how many days are you spending in each country? How do you appreciate places when you're in and out? When you're
So
in and
quick.
out so quick. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. So for the first 90 countries, I mean that was over 13 years, 12 years. So I felt like I did pretty good justice to most of those places on a school break, usually of a week, 1 or 2 countries, summer, maybe 5 or 10 countries. The 14 months was definitely fairly quick, but a lot of the places, I'll give an example, like Nauru, the smallest country in the world. I ran around it once, it was 12 miles, and I took a motorcycle around it 8 times. I was there for 3 days. So some of the islands you can see a lot in a short period of time. And some of the African countries are countries that where infrastructure is a little bit harder to get around. Honestly, like the capital or near the capital is kind of what you could do safely. I felt like. Um, so every country is very different. Let's say Yemen, I could only go for a day. Russia, I felt like 4 weeks was barely scratching the surface. I mean, there's like 10 time zones in Russia. So it really varies on the country. Countries that I want to see more are more outdoors, kind of like my lifestyle. Nepal, for example. I mean, I was there for 3 weeks and didn't want to leave. And other countries, for safety reasons, you're kind of in and out quicker than you want to be. So really varies. I stay in every country for at least a couple of days if I can, minimum. Never hop in the airport. That doesn't count. I mean, like literally every country for a few days.
Got you. Okay. And I think we had another question come in from Juan. It said, "What is it more like planning, or are you kind of freestyling?" I think you kind of mentioned that a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I do this constantly. It's going with ideas of places that I've usually pinned on Google Maps that are places that I've researched, I've heard of. But then I go, and when I talk to local people, I will scratch my plans immediately for whatever local person tells me, wants to take me, wants to show me, wants to invite me. That will obviously, like, I will change my plans immediately for whatever local person tells me. Because
Yeah.
some blog post or what someone's written online is great, but if a local family is going to take me to the mountains with them, then forget what I was doing.
As
So
long
I'd
as they're
say
not
it's a
trying to scam
combination
you.
of both. Yeah. You got to be a good judge of character. I think I've messed up a couple of times, but
Mm.
pretty good about getting a feel for if someone's wanting to help you out or if they're looking for something. And yeah, you got to have that like character judgment that hopefully you get better and better, kind of street smart as you travel.
Yeah, you got to be optimistic, like you said. I had another question. Okay, this one is more financial from Carl. He says, "What is the biggest piece of advice for saving money on strictly transportation costs when going abroad?"
Sure. Transportation, I'm assuming the flight to get there or within the country when you're there.
I'm
Or I
assuming
could talk about
both.
both if
Yeah.
you want. So the flight, I mean, that's always the big cost, especially if you're, let's say, working in the US or Europe or somewhere and you have a week or 2 weeks vacation. The flight's a hard one. I mean, I try to fly often. Tuesdays and Thursdays are cheaper days. I always take layovers. Sometimes you find mistake deals. There's whole like travel hacking blogs and posts and things, and those are helpful. But the flight's always going to be the big cost. So it's a huge one. When I'm within the country, I can do it really cheap. That one, I feel like I'm even better at than flying, finding like mistake fares is local transportation. I mean, for
Mhm.
sure. Sometimes rental car is what you're going to do, but if you can take local buses, mashrukas they call them often, like vans that fill up when you get to a street corner in like Central Asia. I think African countries are always like that. Like I want to say Nigeria, same thing. Like if you show up, sometimes when the car's full, they'll go to wherever the next town is. And so, I mean, it's time or money. Usually, you don't have both.
Yeah.
So you want to spend more money, you got less time, you're gonna have to eat it and get a rental car or driver. If you got more time, you can go how the people go, and you can go with local transportation. I try to do that as much.
Got you. And that actually makes me a question coming to mind too is the fact, obviously you're the world hiker, right? But I'm assuming you've probably been to all 50 states in the US.
Yeah, I've been to
Gotcha.
all 50 states in the U.S. and all 31 states in Mexico, and I've done a lot outdoors and hiking in the U.S.,
Yeah.
especially the western part of the U.S. because I grew up and lived in California.
Okay. So I was gonna ask, what are your favorite places within the US? Like, where would you recommend somebody they have to check out?
Sure. I mean, I worked in Colorado for 3 years as a backpacking guide, so I think I planned for people's trips to Colorado this fall for them to be able to check out the fall colors. And I mean, I've taken hundreds of people up the 14,000-foot peaks in Colorado. I love it. I mean, that's probably one of the most spectacular places in our country.
Gotcha.
Southern Utah, Northern Arizona, I love. That would be Bryce, Zion, Arches, Canyonlands. The Grand Canyon's fantastic. I ran across it again this fall for, excuse me, the second time. Met a friend in the middle of the canyon, traded keys, and then drove vehicles the opposite direction so we can only go one way instead of two ways. So
Yeah.
that made it a, 24-mile a day instead of a 48-mile a day. I love the western part of the U.S. I mean, I like the outdoors, so I'll say the Rockies in Colorado,
Gotcha.
northern Arizona, southern Utah, northern Washington's really pretty with the Cascades, up kind of above Rainier and up that way. So
Right.
I'm a fan of the mountains.
I'm gonna watch this back and take notes. We got some more questions coming in. So Steve says, based on everywhere you've been within the US, could you see yourself living where besides the US could you see yourself living permanently?
Living permanent, sure. Yeah, I've lived in Brazil and Mexico for the longest. I also lived in Colombia, Uruguay, and Bolivia. I love Mexico. I feel really at home in Mexico. I love the people. I love the foods. Obviously, speaking Spanish makes it a little bit easier being
Yeah,
down here, being able to communicate with everybody. It feels like a second home. I could fly home right now in 4 hours and be home
that's
quicker
true.
than
Yeah.
I get to Houston almost, like from Sacramento. So, you can go home, you can go down to Mexico, you can go, wherever you are in Sacramento, go to Mexico City, you can get down to Cancun, you get down to every part of Mexico basically in, 2 to 6 hours. So I love that. And
Mexico.
feels like you're close to home. I think
Yeah,
Western Europe, you feel comfortable, but I'll throw out Mexico as a country that I could definitely see living in.
got you. That's dope. Yeah. Questions are rolling in right now. It says, what country slash region would you recommend for first time travelers?
Sure. Yeah. So um, Western Europe in general is the easy to say, but it's not the cheapest. So if you're looking for a good place to go, and I always recommend for my students, like Western Europe's a great place to start. Italy, France, Spain, Germany, Austria. If you want a little bit cheaper countries, move your way eastern in Europe. Move your way east, right? So
Hmm.
Western Europe is more expensive than Central Europe. It's more expensive than Eastern Europe. So if you want to still be in Europe and kind of have the safety and comfort of lots of young travelers, then Western Europe's popular. Central is a little cheaper. Eastern is less popular and even cheaper. So I
Mm,
like I like going to Eastern Europe. I mean, but that being said, I love Latin America. So I
Latin
wouldn't throw
America.
out, countries like Mexico or Brazil or Costa Rica,
Yeah.
Puerto Rico, Jamaica. I mean, some of these countries are really friendly with foreigners. So they're close and you can get cheaper flights as well.
Gotcha. You want to make me get fluent in Spanish ASAP,
You
man.
got it. You got it. There's 20 countries to speak it, man. Everywhere you go to the
Yeah.
south, you gotta know some Spanish.
For real. And okay, let me ask, what is the favorite mountain that you've climbed?
Favorite? Good question. Um, I just went up Cotopaxi in Ecuador, which is the highest mountain I've ever been at. That was 19,400 feet, and I was suffering. I was only there for 3 days, which is not that much time to acclimate. Acclimate is where you get used to the altitude. So yeah, you get into Quito, you're at 9,000 feet. I went up a 14,000 foot mountain the first day, 17,000 foot the second day. Third day went to the mountain refuge, and the fourth day, not really the fourth day, the third night, you wake up at midnight. You don't really sleep. You just take a nap for an hour or two, and got up for sunrise because the mountain's a lot safer at night. You want to get up there for the sunrise. The ice and the snow is compact. There's a lot less issues, avalanche issues, and things. That was a spectacular one. I just made a video on it on YouTube a week or two ago on Cotopaxi. So highest one of my life. I'll throw that one out. I was just up there a couple weeks ago.
19,000. That's crazy, man.
That's a mile higher than Mount Whitney, right? Which is the highest peak in the continental U.S., which is 14. So
Wow.
19 is over a mile higher.
Got you. Another good question from Harneet. He says, "How about food? When traveling to new countries, how do you navigate the food scene? Did you find yourself at more? Y'all love writing paragraphs for these questions. But I think the general question is, how about food? How did you navigate that?
Sure, and I see it. Are you in more upscale places? I think a lot of people when they travel, they find themselves eating at fast food restaurants or chains or expensive places because they don't know where to go or they don't feel like it's safe. My students asked me this yesterday actually in class. It was like, what do you think about street food? And I told them 7 years, 8 years abroad, like roughly over 2,000 days abroad, and that I've felt food poisoning maybe 3 or 4 times or something. So, I mean, I eat street food. I eat out all the time, and so I in Spanish I like it. I bet Juan's probably heard of it. Donde está lleno está bueno, and wherever it's full of people, that's probably a good place to go. And
Okay,
so you look where the locals are. If the locals are eating there, si es bonito, barato y bueno, then if it's good, cheap, and good looking food, then I try to go there. And I mean, my mom taught me to eat everything. Thankfully, that's a blessing that I don't complain. I never say no. I had cuy, which is guinea pig, twice in Ecuador, for example. I had on Christmas Day, which was a little weird, not picturing my pet when I was 6 years old, on my plate there. But yeah, pretty much ate everything, and I do not eat at fancy, expensive Western American chains. I avoid them. Like, why would I spend $6 at McDonald's when I could, you know, go down the street from where my friends are and have huge Mexican meal for $3 or $4 or something.
got
Like,
you.
yeah, no, I don't eat at fancy places at all, and have not had too many problems with street food and food in general.
Got you. Oh man, this is coming in. Okay. Oh, this is a good. I don't know if you know. You're going to be biased here, but the country with the nicest people.
Nicest people. Good question, Jake. Man, there's nice people everywhere. Nicest people. Let's see. I'm gonna throw out India and Pakistan and Bangladesh. I think those countries, for me, jump out. I mean, literally every country I've met, people. But those countries, like, they're ultra friendly. I think I've mentioned in all my classes I've taught that in Pakistan for 3 weeks, like I basically didn't spend a dollar because every day people. I have a friend Drew Binsky. He's got 2 million more followers than I do on YouTube, but he made a video called "Why Is Everything Free in Pakistan?" And the same thing can be said for I think that region. But Pakistan's the one that jumped out literally every day. And they're like, no, 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 it's on me, and let me go get my cousin and my uncle, my brother, and everyone to come
What?
meet you, and like, no, try this, try this, try this. And so 3 straight weeks of literally like having your money ready to pay for food or drink, or no, no, come stay with me and my family, be an honor. And I mean, you just don't get that in parts of the world, and those countries are ridiculously friendly. But like I said, there's friendly people everywhere. But that region
So,
of the world definitely jumps out.
got you. Does one stick out to you for like the meanest people? You don't have to say
Meanest, meanest people.
the.
I think
Yeah.
I'll tell you one that broke the stereotype. I think we hear of Russia and we think of cold people, for people that
Mm,
are going to be hard to get to know. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So I was there for almost a month. I think I mentioned I had a visa for 30 days. I almost used the entire thing. Took some of the Trans-Siberian Railway, went across like half of Russia by train, which is an experience if you haven't traveled by train. And the people, I met some English teachers there. I met some people who were really friendly. And so, nah, I think it's the opposite. And I think it's stereotypes being broken. And
Yeah.
countries like Russia, where I expect people to be a little colder to me or not as friendly,
Yeah.
that was not the case.
That's good. I think there's mean people everywhere, man.
I mean, there's a
It's
few
just
mean
life.
people everywhere, but that's
Yeah.
that's life, right?
I got you. And I'm gonna answer one more, and then I'm gonna get close to wrapping up. So one last question is, what has been your biggest slash eye-opening experience?
Hmm. Man, this might be like conclusion question I already put out there. But okay.
Ooh.
Man, biggest eye-opening experience. I'd say growing up wherever you are. In my case, in the U.S., kind of staying within one state, you just hear what the news and the stereotypes and the media portrays of the world, and it makes you scared. And you're either fearful, or you're ignorant, you're both. And I think we're all that way when we grow up, right? Because we kind of just assume everything's like what it is in our little bubble wherever we grow up. And man, it will open your eyes and change your perspective completely when you see how the rest of the world lives. And it made me be grateful, appreciate all the things that we have and that we grew up with, at least for where I grew up, and not take anything for granted, and see how the rest of the world lives, and to learn that people are good. Man, if it's a government or if it's the news is going to say whatever flood, whatever disaster, whatever stats of like homicide. The news is only going to say that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the only thing you're going to hear about Mexico is probably narcotraficantes and Ciudad Juarez, and most of the things are going to pop out in the news. And when you come down here, man, when you come down to Mexico, it's just people are fabulous. They're absolutely fabulous, and I've just kind of learned to trust, not be ignorant, but to trust that there's so many more good people around. And yeah, people are good, man. You got to get out there and experience it for yourself and see what it's like.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And I feel that too. I mean, obviously, being an immigrant, coming from Nigeria to America, the first time I ever left the country on my own it was Western Europe. So that was like my first time, like, oh, like, because my parents were very scared. They were like, oh, be careful, make sure you do this, that, this, that. And so I was kind of scared. But I get there and you realize they're just people. They're just people with a different, destination, a different location. And I think you make a good point. I strongly believe that everybody should travel, whether that's outside of the country, whether that's outside of where you are. I just think once you kind of step out of your own comfort zone, it makes you a little bit more empathetic, and you understand that at the end of the day, people are going through things wherever they are. And I think to base it off of news is just, it really, I feel like it makes us more distant. So I definitely agree with him. Obviously, you've been to way more places than I've been. So you probably can definitely keep saying that all day. But I appreciate that eye opening experience. And I
Sure, I
know,
think I think you're right on too. I think we're taught to be afraid of other cultures and things that are different from us.
mhm,
And if we grow up in the U.S., I don't know if we're taught to be afraid of going to wherever it is, Middle East or Africa, or this part of the world, that part of the world, or China, or whatever. We're taught to be afraid to go to these places. When you go, people are living, they're loving their families, they want to work, they want to provide, they want to have food, they want to laugh, they want to be together. Like, have so many more things in common than you think. Like when you jump into a family's life, literally their days are based around the same values that we have. For the most
mhm,
part, their clothes look different, their language sounds different, what they're consuming and eating for food looks different. But I mean, what do they want to do? They want to spend time with family. They want to have a better lifestyle. They want to have a better job. They want to get educated. They want to provide for their kids. And like the core values, we're all the same, man. And so when you get there, all of a sudden you realize like, hey, like, they want to look out for me because I'm someone who's lost, confused, traveling solo. And so people have compassion. That happens to me everywhere I go as a solo traveler. Smart.
mhm.
I'm always on my own for most trips, and people take you in and they just kind of accept you like family. And I mean, we're always taught to be scared of strangers in the U.S. and like there's wisdom to that, but I've had to reach out for help a million and one times, and have been helped by strangers all over the world, and just been received with open arms wherever
Yeah.
wherever I go, and love that feeling when people take you in spur of the moment and help you out, show you around, take you to your next place, invite you over, whatever it is. It just the overwhelming generosity of people around the world is really stands out to me.
That's dope. And you kind of might have touched on this right now, but I always like to end the live and ask, words of advice. If based on all your experiences, all you've done, what is like one word of advice you would give to the people that are listening, watching, based on your life experiences?
Sure. Yeah, I think I mentioned a little before when my brother and dad passed, like it made me realize we're not all here forever. And so many people postpone things they want to do for sometime in the future. or when they're retired. And I'm like, man, great. I saw my brother, when he was 27, like perfect health, and all of a sudden, within a few months, he was gone. It just spiraled my life down for a couple of months of depression. And when I came out of it, I'm like, man, I'm gonna go at the things that we love to do together more passionately with a purpose. And I'm gonna go forward, because going forward is the only way we can go in life. And so, if I want to try to visit every country, or hike up mountains, or feel alive and feel like I'm maximizing my time, it's the only way I know how to slow down time, is to have new experiences, do things that make you feel alive and in the moment, challenge you. And so, that 14 months abroad felt like 14 years. If I go out on a Saturday morning and summit a mountain with friends, it feels like 3 days in one, but like it makes me feel truly alive. And, if I disappeared from planet Earth tomorrow, I feel like I lived a full life, and that's what makes me want to keep going and living the same lifestyle, and, trying to encourage other people to do the same.
Got you. Now, I completely agree, man. I love that, you were able to have that, positive mindset. Obviously, it's still a feeling that's always going to be there, but I'm really happy that you've been able to change that and make it what you are today. I'm really excited. I love your content. I love the messages you give. So I really appreciate you once again for joining this live. I think everybody really enjoyed you willing to share your time, your answers to their questions. But I'm gonna let you go, and I'll wrap it up with the rest of the gang, and then we'll catch up later.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Thanks for your show, putting all the work in, and man, happy to share.
All right, man. I'll talk to you later, man.
All right.
Peace.
Take care.
Peace. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Paul and Pals. Hope y'all enjoy that episode. If this is your first time listening or watching, please subscribe wherever you listen/watch. We got some great content to come, and I'm really excited for the show to grow. And if you want to help me grow, I would love if you guys would share this with somebody that you think could resonate with an episode or podcast as a whole. And you guys might have noticed I'm also rocking some fresh, hot new Paul and Pals merch. And this will actually be coming soon, but if you want to be the first to hear about it, subscribe to the newsletter, and you can find that in the link in bio, the show notes, the description. From the people that subscribe, I will actually be giving out a discount code so you guys can get it for the low. If you guys want to stay up to date with me, follow me at Ponyboy Paul. Focus more on the show itself, you can follow that at Paul and Pals. And that's all I got, man. So just a reminder, remember to stay creative. Peace.